The president felt compelled to call in to Fox and Friends this morning. He's speaking to my friend Charles Hurt, as well as Lawrence Jones and someone else. Ainsley was there. Okay, let's play let's play some of this. This is the relevant part that Sean has isolated for me.
The thing that is surprising a lot of people is when it comes to the security guarantees. I know President Putin said no NATO, and you said, you know, we're just going to take that off the table. But you did get President Putin to agree to NATO-like protections. So tell us about that. What does that entail?
Yeah, pause. First of all, that's a good question. It's very well framed, because this is my concern, which is that we know we're not doing NATO. But if we don't do NATO, what is the alternative? Because if it behaves like NATO, if it looks like a NATO and it quacks like a NATO, then it might be a NATO. And that's the problem here that I'm seeing, where there could be some problems with a lesser president. Not necessarily under Trump. I trust Trump on this stuff. And you don't have to. I'm not telling you trust Trump on this stuff. I'm telling you on a personal, my opinion. Alex Marlowe, editor-in-chief of Breitbart, and your humble host for today. I do trust Trump on this stuff. His foreign policy has been A+, but he will not be president forever. If we're lucky, he'll be president through 2036, and that's it. Then eventually he's going to have to retire and do something else. Okay, let's see the answer.
What does that entail?
Well, the war really started over NATO and Crimea, and they wanted Crimea back. That was given, not a shot fired by President Obama in perhaps the worst real estate deal I've ever seen. There's been a couple of them. I would say the Gaza Strip was a pretty bad one, too, given by Israel so they'd have peace. So they gave away a big percentage of their oceanfront property in order to have peace. How did that work out? Not so good. And Crimea is the apple of Ukraine. I mean, it's so beautiful. And Obama gave it away. Nobody ever mentions that. If I ever did that, the fake news would be writing about me day and night for years. He gave it away. He demanded that they let it go, and Russia came in and took it, just took it like from a candy from a baby.
Sean, let me chime in on this point, because I want to make this point. This is not a primary point, but this is still an interesting point. The fact that Trump thinks of everything as a real estate deal, I think, is helpful to us. I think that's why he wants to clean up D.C., is that he sees the real estate in D.C. as unbelievable. Those of you who have not spent a lot of time in our nation's capital, I lived there for 8 years. It is an incredibly beautiful city at its best, and it's getting overrun by left-wing radicals and fools who are destroying it. But the architecture is the best. The weather's incredible. It is just one of these places where it could be iconic. It could be the leader of the world. It kind of is already. And so why shouldn't it be excellent? And I think Trump does drive around and think, what's going on here? Like, why aren't people valuing their real estate? Because that's what the government does. When the government's fat and happy, they don't value their real estate and stuff like that. And that's why I'm hopeful he'll see stuff like L.A. If you drive around L.A., I live just north of L.A., for those of you who are unfamiliar. When you drive around L.A., you go to downtown's not usable, but then randomly there'll be a Michelin star restaurant that you'll be compelled to go to and spend too much money on every once in a while. But you can just walk around downtown L.A. It's not a thing. You don't do that. People leave there. They try not to work there. They try to get out of there as fast as they can. And that's a disgrace, but we just accept it here because it's a one-party town. All right, continue, Sean.
Just took it like from a candy from a baby. And it was really Obama's, not really, I mean, that was pure and simple, Obama's fault. What a terrible thing he did to that country. And so they lost their heart. They lost the heart and soul of the Ukraine 14 years ago, whatever it might be. And it was so unnecessary to do that. And that's when it really began, when Obama gave it away. And then you had a lot of other events, but you have, tremendous hostility. The people of Ukraine were mortified when that took place. That really began a lot of hatred when they gave it. And they didn't have to. Not a shot was fired. They just took over the most valuable piece and the biggest piece in a sense and surrounded on four sides by ocean, just a little passage to get you back onto the mainland. The most beautiful piece of property you've ever seen as a real estate developer. I look at it, I said, why the heck did he do that to them? And so there's great hostility, and maybe rightfully so. But one thing was NATO. They went in. They said, we want you. We want to get Crimea back. This was at the beginning. Now Putin, in all fairness to him, he made a good deal. He got it from Obama. But they said, we want it back, and that was not exactly well received because it was like 12 years before. That's where Russia has its submarine base, and that's been there long before Putin. They've been there for a long time. but long before Putin. And the other thing they said is we want to be a member of NATO. Well, both of those things are impossible because, again, long before Putin, it was a no-no by Russia or the Soviet Union or anything you want to call it. Sort of a similar thing as it gets larger, but very similar.
Sean, so it is important here to emphasize how big of a deal that is, that the U.S. president is saying flat out no to NATO. There is no one with the spine in the Republican establishment or the Democrat Party who could say that to Ukraine. And they know that it is a disaster for the world if Ukraine joins NATO, but they won't say it like that. They won't just say it's impossible. And it's really good. And it's also interesting how they are. It must be very funny to sit on the couch, Fox and Friends, because I can hear my friend Charlie. He would love to get in there. He'd love to jump in there with the president and kind of get him back on the rails here. But he was talking about real estate deals for a long time. There's nothing you could do. You got to let him roll. It's part of being the leader of the free world. We'll let him roll here, too, on the Elder Show. Let's do some more, Sean. Go ahead.
Similar thing as it gets larger, but very similar. But it was always a no-no. You could not. Russia said we don't want the so-called opponent or the enemy. Let's use that term. We don't want them on our border, and they were right. They were okay, and yet they went in and they asked with the United States. They said, "Put us into NATO," and everybody knew you just can't do that. They would never have agreed to it. This is before Putin. This is long before Putin. It was just a no-no. It was something that was never going to happen. So they asked for it, and they shouldn't have asked for it because it was, very insulting thing. Now, they could have asked for many other things. But the other thing they wanted to do is getting Crimea back, and, that was given. They had built, they were expanding everything and spending a lot of money, all because Barack Hussein Obama gave it away in one of the dumbest real estate deals I've ever seen.
It's an amazing history that Trump lays out there.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.